I wrote a book about the Chrysler Turbine Car project. Chrysler back in the 1950s shoehorned a turbine engine into a car, got it to drive, turbine car. And they had a program from 1953 to 1988 where they worked on turbines in cars, automotive turbines. And by the way, I have to point this out. Some people are already correcting me saying it's not turbine, it's turbine. Both are acceptable. Check a dictionary. But the people at Chrysler called them turbines. And in all their promotional literature, I'm talking about audio, where they've got a deep voiced announcer going, and now Chrysler's turbine car. He does not say, and now Chrysler's turbine car. Doesn't say that Chrysler called them turbine cars. So Chrysler built a fleet of cars in 1963, 55 cars. They lent 50 of them to the public as a big publicity stunt. After that stunt was over, they rounded up 46 of the cars and destroyed them. They retained 3 cars themselves, and they sent the last 6 out to museums. Generally speaking, those cars were not intended to ever be driven again, but a couple of them got back on the road, and there's stories behind all of that. But Jay Leno, who has a few cars of his own, managed to get his hands on a Chrysler Turbine Car in the early 2000s. He got his hands on one of the ones from Chrysler that ran. So he buys this turbine car, brings it back to his collection, and I had spoken to him previously because I'd written a book about the turbine car project, and I'd sent him a manuscript of it, and he actually helped me get it published. It's a complicated story. I've talked about it before. Jay's got this turbine car, and he drives it. And he actually said to me, Steve, if you're ever in California, I'll let you drive it. So 3 seconds later, I'm in California driving his turbine car. Very, very cool. I've now driven 3 of the 9 surviving turbine cars, of which only 5 run. So I've driven 3 of the 5. So that's not bad. Time goes by. I wrote a book about this. Book came out, did very, very well. Stayed in touch with Jay over the years. Very, very nice guy. Been to his garage a couple times. He actually had me on Jay Leno's garage to talk about my book. Very, very cool. One day I'm sitting at home. My cell phone rings. It's Jay. And, hey, Jay, how you doing? Pretty good. I've got a problem with my turbine car. I go, what's that? And he goes, the engine has failed. And I go, okay, what do you have any idea what failed? And he goes, it's bad. And I go, okay, well, I assume he's calling me to see if I have any insight. I go, have you tried this guy? Yeah, I've already called him. Have you tried this guy? I've already called him. Have you tried these people? I called them. Have you looked here? Have you looked? And I rattled through in my mind the flow list, the flow chart of every single person that you'd call who could fix the car, replace the engine. Nothing. He goes, I've struck out. Then I realized, oh, that's why he's calling me. Because otherwise, there's really no legitimate reason for him to be calling me about how to fix a turbine car. I don't know how to fix a turbine car. He goes, do you have any ideas? I'm out. Well, the turbine car program was started and headed by a guy named Sam Williams. Sam Williams was a genius who said, I think we can take a jet engine and configure it to put in a car and make turbine-powered cars. And he's the guy who oversaw the project. And after the first few generations, he actually left and started his own company. So Chrysler was doing their thing. Sam Williams was doing his, continuing to build small jet engines or turbine engines for different uses. So he built a couple that were put in cars. He built some engines for things like drones that the military had used to tow a target so they could shoot at something without risking the life of a pilot. Some engines that went into cruise missiles for the military. Some engines that go onto small executive jets. Very, very big company now doing this stuff. But they're not well known because of the fact that they're not publicly traded and it's still run by the family. Now, Sam has passed away, but the family, his son, is now the president and CEO of Williams International, is what they call it now. I go, well, Jay, the brain trust from Chrysler went from Chrysler to Sam Williams because Williams International was hiring those people whenever they left Chrysler's turbine division. And Chrysler shut their program down eventually, so many of them went over to Williams International. I said, if anybody can fix it, it might be them. And he goes, do you know anybody there? I go, my brother works there. And I've got another brother who is a tool designer. And he designs tools for making and repairing and doing maintenance on turbine engines. He's a mechanical genius. And I go, my brother works there, but he's been there for a long time and he knows a lot of people there, obviously. I go, he might be able to tell you if they can help you. And so I text my brother while I'm talking to Jay. Jay Leno's about to call you. Jay goes, thank you very much. And he calls my brother. My brother goes, well, how bad is it? And Jay sends him pictures. And there are pictures of Jay Leno's feet on the floor of his garage with a burned turbine disc where all the blades are burned off. There's supposed to be blades. They're gone. They burned off. A regenerator, which is a glorified heat exchanger that's inside the engine. There's two of them. They rotate really, really slowly. And hot air goes through one side and goes to the other side. And it takes heat out of the exhaust and puts it back into the combustion chamber. And all messed up. Clearly messed up. He goes, these parts are destroyed. And my brother goes, well, redoing that fan disc is something we do because they make those at Williams. Regenerators are archaic technology. Nobody uses those anymore. But to make that engine run, you've got to redo those somehow. Long story short, my brother is intrigued by the idea. He's also getting close to retirement, but he's not there yet. And my brother goes to Greg Williams, son of Sam Williams, and says, we should help Jay Leno get the Turbo Car project back on the road as a tribute to your father. And if you visit Williams International, they've got this one big hallway that's got a mural showing the timeline of Williams International. And at one end of it is Sam Williams and his team putting an engine in the first Chrysler that was powered by a turbine engine. And my brother goes, we could put a picture at the other end of a turbine engine being put in this car for Jay Leno. It's kind of like bookends. And he goes, something where company is running at full blast, full capacity, around the clock. He goes, we can't really drop everything to fix this car for somebody. It's not what we do. But if you can get volunteers to work after hours, weekends, or whatever, I'll give you guys access to all of our equipment. But if there's out-of-pocket costs, Jay will have to pay those. And my brother takes it back to Jay, and Jay goes, sure, not a problem. Jay boxes up the engine, ships it to my brother. Williams sets aside a couple big spaces that are all secure and cameras and clean rooms and stuff, and ships the engine to my brother. And meanwhile, he puts word out among the company, if anybody wants to help with this project, please, I need volunteers. Over 100 people signed up like instantly. I'd love to do this. And all manner of people, whether they work in this department, that department. And they've got experts there, despite the fact that it's old technology, are looking at it going, yeah, we can fix that. Shortly thereafter, my brother gets a couple phone calls from guys who go, I'm retired from Chrysler, and I heard you're working on one of our cars. Can I help? So Rick actually had 3 or 4 guys from Chrysler's old school coming in and helping, including one guy who couldn't come in because he was blind, would call my brother, or my brother could call him and ask this guy questions. And some of the stuff these guys knew was mind-boggling because it wasn't anywhere in the documents, wasn't anywhere in the papers. And they take Jay's engine apart, and it's bad. And Jay goes, now I do have another engine, but I've been told there's something weird about it, but it's the correct engine. I'll ship that to you also. So he ships him the second engine, and one of the old school guys goes, I recognize that. That's our spares engine. Not spare, spares. Because when they were done with the program, they're still doing experiments, and they're working on further cars down the road. They had enough parts to build an engine. They put it together, but it was never intended to be put into a car. So it wasn't maybe balanced perfectly, or perhaps some things were off, but it was a collection of parts that at one point in time were serviceable. So Jay owns both engines. They tear the second engine apart, and they find parts in there that are usable. So they agree that they're going to take the best parts from these 2 engines and rebuild what they've got, but then they're going to recreate what they don't. And so they actually did have to recreate the regenerators because the technology is so old that to redo it would be a nightmare. Now, the regenerators in the spares engine were serviceable, but they weren't perfect. My brother actually drew up, using a computer, a 3-dimensional model of a regenerator as if it was a single piece created at one moment in time. Because it turns out that using 3D printing technology, you can now print in metal. And they actually took the models that my brother drew up. They tested smaller samples of plastic to see how the air flowed through them to try to calculate the heat exchange and so on. Once they realized the model would work, they then found a 3D printer who could print them. And I believe it was a 127-hour print job per regenerator, and they need 2. So if you want to have one of these things made yourself, you can. Find out what it costs to run a 3D printer printing in metal times 127, etc., cost the metal. So they printed up these 2 regenerators. But once you've got them printed, you got to have them hipped, where they put them in a pressure chamber and they put in some inert gases and they pressurize it to the equivalent of being at the bottom of the Marianas Trench. Then they have to heat treat it. Then they got to use EDM wire cutting and cut it off the base. And then they got to finish grind it and balance it. I'm not getting these in the right order, but there's all these processes you have to do to it. As they're going through all of this stuff, they're doing everything to their standards, which is aerospace. So when they pull the gaskets off, for instance, they're going to replace the gaskets. You could measure them, or you could blue line scan them, where you put them on a thing that actually measures them using things that are down to like tenths, meaning 1/10,000th of an inch or so many 10,000ths of an inch, that kind of thing. So everything, the gaskets custom made, the shims are being custom made. They're 3D printing stuff. They're doing all this stuff. And they're getting it done, but it's taking too long. And so at last year's Dream Cruise, they thought they could get the regenerators done in time and they couldn't. And so they asked Jay, they go, hey, Jay, we think we can get it running using those spare regenerators, and then we'll swap them out later when we get the printed ones redone. Is that okay? And Jay goes, sure. So they actually pulled the engine, and by the way, Jay's car was then shipped to my brother's place. So in my brother's workspace, he's got the engine in one room, Jay's car in another room. It's got plexiglass around it with locks and stuff. They actually build a stand for this engine. It's got a dash panel on it and all that stuff. They build a stand, they put the engine on it with the old regenerators, but everything else is brand new. And they actually fire it up on this stand and they film it. It's the first time that engine's been running now in a couple of years, because when it blew up, he stopped running it. And they filmed it because a couple of the guys from Chrysler couldn't be there when they fired it up. My brother goes through all this troubleshooting because there's a couple of more problems they found with it, but they managed to fix them just in time to put the engine back in the car to let Jay get it at the Woodward Dream Cruise. And they gave him his car back running, but they said we'll have to update the regenerators later. But my brother sends a video of the engine running to one of the engineers from the old school. And the guy calls up Rick and goes, hey, Rick, listen to that recording with the sound up as high as you can put it. You'll notice a little clicking noise. And so Rick goes, okay. And he goes to his computer and cranks the volume up. Tick, 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 tick. Very, very slight ticking noise. And it's a guy named Jerry Gross. Jerry Gross goes, I believe that there is a hole underneath the engine where fuel comes out if there's extra fuel where it shouldn't be. And there is a spring-loaded plate that's supposed to be holding this plate shut. It's not being held shut. He says, I think that's ticking because the spring needs replacement. My brother goes over and looks, checks the spring is shot. Calls up one of his spring experts, because of course he's got those. Guy comes out and goes, yeah, I'm getting you spring. Like, if they replace the spring, fixes the clicking problem. Something you never would have spotted in a gazillion years. Among other things, this thing has actually got an altitude compensator on it. So if you're driving a turbine engine up in the mountains or at sea level, the mixture's got to be adjusted because of the air density. They have a thing in this car that actually has bellows in it, which open and close based on air pressure. Even when the car is not running, it's doing that if it's changing air pressure. Like barometric pressure would theoretically adjust this thing a little bit. Turns out that after almost 60 years, that had gone bad. And I asked my brother, I go, how do you determine that that's bad? He goes, first you x-ray it. And by the way, they've got machines that'll x-ray metal. He goes, but to be on the safe side, we put it in a pressure chamber and measured it. Which, again, your average mechanic doesn't have these things to work with. But these guys do because, again, it's aerospace. So they actually found out that the altitude compensator on the spares engine was good, but the one on Jay's engine was bad. It's possible that that's why Jay's engine burned up. We don't know, but it's possible. And they uncovered a couple things along the way that could have contributed to the over-temping condition, not overheating, but over-temping condition that caused Jay's engine failure. And they found those problems and they fixed them. So it's possible that by simply getting his engine running again with the repairs they made, it might be fine to go. But they are still putting the finishing touches on, and then they have to put the regenerators in, and then there's new seals they've made. And then once that's all done, so they gave Jay his car back at the Dream Cruise, and he hung out at the picnic for Williams International. They had a big picnic that day, posed for pictures with a lot of people, including me, signing autographs, hanging out. He's there for many hours just talking to people, but he's got this car there. And Jay will tell you that he has a lot of cars. He loves cars, but he's always loved cars. And he went to the World's Fair in 1964, and he actually remembers the date because there was two cars on display there. The new Ford Mustang and the Chrysler Turbine Car. And he goes, and I went and looked at them both. And he goes, and I walked over to where they had the turbine cars. They were giving rides on a little track. And he goes, I'm a 15-year-old, 14-year-old kid. And he goes, I go over to the fence and I'm sitting like this, watching that turbine car go in circles. He goes, I was mesmerized. And he goes, my dad comes over and goes, what are you doing? Let's go. You can't look at this car all day long. It's going in circles. And he's going, Dad, it's a turbine car. And, here he is all these years later, and he actually bought one. And like all of Jay's cars, he drives them. They're plated and insured, and he believes cars need to be driven. And he was driving this car quite a bit, including letting knuckleheads like me drive it. But I wasn't driving it when it overheated. But he was driving it, and he told me, he goes, I was just driving along, and he's watching temperature gauge, and the gauge started getting too high, and he goes, I pulled over, shut it off, took it back to the shop, and his guys looked at it and said, I think this is above our pay grade. So car's back, it's put back together again, and the good news is that it's been gone through, not just by the guys at Williams International, using the knowledge they have of modern aerospace technology, but also the guys from Chrysler. And sadly, during this time frame, two of the guys who are most involved, a guy named Bill Carey, who's on the cover of my book, and a guy named Jerry Gross, both passed away. Bill Carey was the technician who would go around the country and repair the cars when they broke down or when they changed hands. He also helped Jay Leno get his running and talked to him about what to watch for to make sure it never got too hot. Jerry Gross was a guy who tested the engines on a bench, and he's the one who told Rick that, the clicking noise is that bad spring, and that's because he'd encountered that before. And he remembered it 60 years later. So sadly, while I've gotten to see Jay's car get repaired, and that's pretty cool, I also attended the funerals of some of these guys. And, so many of the people who've worked on these cars from that long ago have passed away. And a lot of the material, the documents, paperwork, engineering reports got lost when Chrysler went through its bankruptcy. It's all gone. And a lot of it only existed still in these guys' heads. And that's going away as well. But the cars that are running and the cars that are in museums, again, there's only 9 of them in the world. Only 5 of them run. But those things are a testament to what they could accomplish back in 1963.
This month of VINwiki content is brought to you by Bridgestone, and the most exciting tire from Bridgestone right now is the brand new RE71RZ. That's their extreme max performance summer tire that is championing pole position. It's built for the grassroots motorsports crowd and offers much better on-track wear patterns than we saw out of the amazing RE71RS that it is now replacing. It uses Bridgestone's enlightened technology to deliver long-lasting performance and much more responsive control. And the RE71RZ is now available across North America in 45 sizes since December 31st of last year. This new tire meets all requirements for SCCA racing and will be eligible for competition use in 2026 for solo and time trials. This new tire is 0.74 seconds faster on a dry lap and 0.75 of a second faster in a wet lap compared to the outgoing RE71RS. This really is an amazing new sports car and supercar tire from Bridgestone, so check it out now, along with everything else that we love about Bridgestone at the link in the description below.